you're in the room of every year of our degree. And one of the key things that we like to focus on at Coventry is the kind of the progression into the world of work. And this is something that I personally, and I know Chris is kind of passionate about, is the entrepreneurial, because I have an often a little saying that, you know, how can you get rich if you're working for someone else? If they can afford to pay you, how much are they getting paid? And so this is why we like this entrepreneurial edge as well, which is why I don't think it's kind of why we don't kind of just do it to the final years, because I think if you want to be an entrepreneur, and I think I'll let you into a bit of background. Chris and I was at university together, and Chris was always quite entrepreneurial. So even though some of the guys here are first years, it's not too early to start doing some entrepreneurial. We have a phrase in digital marketing called credibility before visibility. So even though you're still maybe in your first year, for the first years that are here, it's not too early to start, you know, getting a few clients on the side, doing a little bit of work on the side alongside your studies, so you can develop that portfolio of experience. But anyway, I don't want to take away from himself, so I will introduce you all to Mr. Chris Surridge, who I believe has got a short presentation planned, and then he will be happy to take questions at the end. So thank you very much, Chris. Over to you, my man.
No worries, Matthew. Thank you so much indeed. Oh, excuse me there. So what I will say is, Matthew, do you mind if I share my screen? Let me. Oh yeah, you've given me that access. Okay, let me share my screen and bring up. There we are. I will politely ask if we can just all probably mute everyone for the time being, and then we'll open up again for the Q&A, if that's okay, towards the end. Is that all right, Matt? Yep, okay. So guys, look, thank you ever so much indeed for jumping on board with me here. From time to time, as Matt knows, my Zoom sometimes kicks out a little bit and just pauses. So if it does, forgive me. I will be back in the room in about 5 seconds later. It's just a bandwidth thing, which is ironic for a digital agency. But it is what it is. So just to give you a little bit of background about me, my name is Chris Surridge. I am the digital marketing director here over at Whitefish Marketing. As you can see on the screen here, you got my web address there and telephone number, so a bit of blatant advertising, because that's what it's all about. And today I'm going to be having a quick chat with you about setting up your own agency, for those of you who are thinking about potentially going out on your own and taking that leap of faith and thinking, do you know what, I've got that entrepreneurial spirit. I don't really want to work for someone else. I'm going to go ahead and have a look and give it a go myself. I'm going to try and base this presentation on about half an hour of the presentation, might be less actually, depends how we get along. And then the rest of the time, I'm probably going to look to open the floor for questions. So if you have any specific questions, do think about them now and what you kind of want to ask. I'll try and give you some anecdotes, maybe some real life examples of myself, my clients, and other things that have happened, whether it be positive news, pitfalls, things you should look out for. Oh, excuse me. I've got my little puppy here, which has just, hello, all right, just I'm on the phone. Yeah, good girl. So a little bit more about me, forgive me there. So I set up Whitefish Marketing approximately 7/8 years. I think we're on our 8th year now. I set up in 2014. I've been in digital marketing for quite some time, then moving into digital marketing specifically. And I worked for some big agencies before deciding, you know what, it's time now to go out on my own. I think if you start working for some people, you'll start realizing that you prefer to do things a different way, and you kind of want to make the shots and call the shots yourself. And frankly, that is the entrepreneurial spirit. So I'm going to go through some bits and bobs. I can tell you more about myself at the end. I don't want to rabbit on about myself, but today it's more about yourselves and hopefully what kind of information I can showcase for you. So is that all right? Sorry, I heard something then. Is everything all right? Okay. So let's go on to this thing here. Starting out. Matthew's absolutely right in terms of it's never too early to have that entrepreneurial spirit. I must admit, I had a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit at university. I actually set up a different company back then, doing something completely different. And even before university, I had another company doing promotional marketing when I was 17, 18. So I always kind of wanted to have that entrepreneurial kind of idea of going out on my own. That being said, I must admit, I did learn a few lessons, and that is that I made a lot of mistakes along the way. And the core reason for that is because I didn't have the experience in the industry. Things which are obviously tried and tested, you can then utilize that for later on because you know it's been tried, tested, secure, it works. But if you're going out on your own for the very first time and you've got no experience behind you, you are going to come a cropper with certain things. So you just have to bear that in mind. However, one thing that Matthew did say, and I can't remember what the phrase was he just used about creativity versus something, but exactly what he said there in terms of it's not too early to start. I'm going to talk about your website in a bit. And one of the things I want to tell you is an expression I use, which is progress versus perfection. In other words, progress, you can get up and start doing something. You don't always have to wait for that perfect moment, or you don't always have to wait for your website or your content or whatever it might be to be absolutely perfect. And I'll give you a case study later on about something that I know where, such a thing has happened. So, excuse me, let me talk to you about this slide then and where we're at with it. What I would say is if you're getting a job or if you're already in a job, don't pull the ripcord just yet. Consider going freelance at the same time as your full-time employment. Get some money on the side, get some clients on the side, okay? Build up a portfolio. That's the next thing, definitely. Because when the time comes and you want to go ahead and launch yourself, a portfolio, a case study, a testimonial, a review, those things are worth 1,000 words. They're going to be your weight in gold when the time comes and you set up for yourself. Having recommendations and referrals from other people or a testimonial and a voice of credibility are worth its weight in gold. Also, at the same time, when you go ahead and start doing things on the side, you can start building up some regular clients with regular income. One of the biggest things that people are going to struggle with when they go on their own is trying to identify how much money they need to survive, how much money they genuinely can have to survive. Some people have a wish, and that's not necessarily met by the need. Initially, you just look at the basic needs. How much do you need to have in terms of income to survive, to pay the bills, to put food on the table? And then you can progress from there. Don't go ahead and say, I want to have a 60, 70, 80 grand job straight out the back. It's not going to happen unless you're extremely lucky, which I haven't heard of. So build up your portfolio, build up some regular clients with regular income, and of course, build up your cash reserves. That's one thing I would definitely say, because if a client pulls out and you're going to have to rely on some cash reserves, then you need to make sure you've got some savings there or something to help with your cash flow moving forward. Once all those things are ready, and once you think that you've got a nice kind of critical mass, it doesn't have to be a huge thing, just a small critical mass ready for you to go, then start to transition and go on your own. And what I've tried to do here, put at the bottom here of every slide, is what I call my top tip. Get some industry experience first. Now, I worked for a major digital marketing agency, which were the best in their industry sector, and I'll talk about that in a minute. They were the best in their industry sector by a country mile in the UK, and I worked on the flagship accounts, with substantial kind of millions in their budget per year. Now, what I learned then, in terms of, if I look at, I worked there for about 4.5 years, something of that nature. If I look at what I was when I came out of that company compared to my skill set, my experience, what I had going into that company, they are astronomically at two different ends of the spectrum and scale. So one thing I will say is, even if it's for a short time, get some industry experience first. Start to learn how to deal with clients. Learn about what client expectations are going to be like. Are they easy? Are they hard? Learn about what my old boss used to say as the red face test. When you're sitting opposite a client and they're very upset with you, how do you deal with that? And I know it sounds a bit shallow for me to say, but learn all of that on somebody else's dime, okay? Because at the end of the day, you're covered by somebody else's company who will back you and support you and so on and so forth. When you go out on your own and you hit these hard pitfalls, then it's all on your head. So here I've got a lovely picture of a guy or a lovely kid here on stabilizers. So that's what it is. Starting out, use stabilizers and just get that balance before you're ready to progress on to the next bit. Okay, limited company versus sole trader. Now, so if you pulled the ripcord, you bit the bullet, whatever expression you want, and you think you're going to actually go ahead and now make that move and make that transition. I am always a very, very, very strong advocate of limited companies. The reason for that is because, very first and foremost, for any of those who study kind of basic business studies, you have limited liability. If you're a sole trader, you can potentially get yourself sued and lose your house, or if you have to sign up to certain types of personal loans. These things here are bad. Have a limited company. It's as simple as that. They're not too expensive to run. So if you go onto Google and search for this expression here, which I've got here, same-day company formation, there will be tons of service providers out there. The chances are it's about £99, and they probably set it up in less than a week. Oh, hello. Oh, okay, we're gone. So what I would say there is, yes, have a look at the same-day company formation. Also, at the same time, one thing I didn't put down in this presentation is have a chat with a bank early on, rather than leave it to the last minute. During lockdown, there was a massive, massive problem with banks, and I actually set up another company. Matt knows which company, but I set up a completely separate company in a completely different industry for a personal interest of mine during lockdown. And the problem was no banks were actually setting up bank accounts for companies because of admin issues, and they were concerned about liabilities during lockdown of new business startups. So one thing I will say is speak to your bank early on, because the process will actually take quite a while to set up your business bank account. Okay, that you really want your business bank account to be in place when you first start, because otherwise it starts muddying your accounts, your profits compared to your personal income, and it gets a little bit messy. Some of the legal requirements, though, unfortunately, of having a limited company, and these things people aren't actually aware of. So first and foremost, every year you're going to have to submit annual accounts to HMRC. But then again, that's no different if you worked on yourself, worked as a freelancer, and you'd have to do a self-assessment tax return in January each year. Oh, I think my connection is just a little bit unstable. Forgive me if I disappear. But yes, you're going to want to have an annual accounts return to HMRC every year. You're also going to have to do a very, very basic confirmation statement to Companies House. Okay, what I'd advise is just farm this out to a cheap accountant. You can speak to accountants who, there are so many now, who will just handle your year-end tax returns and go from there. The other thing that is vitally important and legal requirement is public liabilities insurance, and if even employers' liability insurance, because a limited company is a separate legal entity to yourself. And as such, you will need employer's liability because you are an employee. It's as simple as that. And of course, in the current legalities, you also have to pay pensions. So even if it's just you to start with, you're going to have to find a pension provider. Speak to an accountant, speak to a good accountant who can handle all of this for you. And unfortunately, that's just one cost that you do have to kind of take on the chin, in my opinion. You can do it yourself, but I'm going to show you later on why you don't want to do it. Okay, you want to be farming out a lot of admin stuff that you yourself do not want to be focusing on, because then it frees you up to do what you do best in your skill sector. Okay, and the last thing that I will say, I've just separated it here, is do consider giving yourself PAYE as opposed to dividends. Now, dividends are, if you're a shareholder of your company, you might want to split out the shares with your partner or your parents, and at the end of the year, you can give yourself dividends. Now, the good thing about giving yourself dividends is that you don't actually pay national insurance on those things. But of course, that's going to affect your pension later on down the line. And you technically potentially can pay less tax from the company overhaul by just doing it by the dividends route. The problem with that, and I know a couple of people in the industry who have actually experienced this, who only pay themselves dividends, is when they want to come and get a mortgage. There's actually only certain types of mortgage companies. There are actually specialist kind of like freelance contractor mortgage providers who will give you a mortgage based on income from dividends. Whereas with PAYE, you're actually seen as a separate employee of the company, and you're just getting a regular paycheck, just like you would do if you worked for ABC Limited. So at the end of the day, I recommend doing yourself PAYE because that's actually going to help you potentially get a mortgage later on down the line. Now, things might have very well changed, but I'm just giving you from my experience. My top tip down here at the bottom, whenever you go off and get your liabilities insurance and stuff, add on professional liability insurance. Okay, now professional liability insurance, people might think, oh, that's only for lawyers or accountants or doctors, because if they do something wrong, it's going to have a real significant impact on the patient or on their client if they've screwed something up legally, so on and so forth. No, it's also for our profession as well. Okay, at the end of the day, you are providing a professional service for somebody else's business, and if potentially you mess up on something, they could come back to your company and have a go, and dare I say it, even try to sue you. And so subsequently, just be aware of that, and you should, for a very, very small premium, take out professional liability insurance. Even if you decide to go down the freelancer route and not the limited company route, you can still take out professional liability insurance as an individual. I use a company called Policy B. Excuse me, Policy B, as in B as in the insect, and they're very good. I'm sure there's tons of other more insurance providers out there, but they're very, very good. They can also help with your pensions as well, so consider them. Right, so you decided now to set up the company. Let's take this to the next step then. What exactly are you going to consider? So first thing is choosing your brand name carefully. Now, everyone always asks me, why did I come up with the name Whitefish Marketing? And I've got a silly anecdote about it, but I won't go into that now. But really what you want to do is you want to choose your brand name carefully. You want to choose something where the domain is available. When I say the domain, obviously the URL, www.abclimited.com or whatever. Okay, so you want to make sure that the domain is available. You want to make sure that there's no kind of similarities to other brand names with a similar name to yourself, because people will start searching you for you by brand as you grow. Okay, have a look at your competitors then as well. Make sure that you are not in the same sector or even other sector. What I mean by that is, let's say you wanted to call yourself Virgin Digital Media. Okay, now how close is that to Virgin Media? And frankly, you're never going to start outranking that competitor. So just give it some thought, do your research, have a quick check. Also consider the pronunciation and spelling. Whitefish Marketing for me was always something quite simple. But if I have to say it to people, I say white the color, fish the animal. But what I'm getting at is you don't want something where there's going to be some sort of ambiguity over the spelling or the pronunciation. You also want to be able to say it quite easily, let it roll off the tongue, let other people be able to say it quite easily. Oddly enough, I've actually set up my other company, which I'm talking to you about, and that fails that criteria. And we're having significant kind of feedback from friends and families that they don't know how to pronounce the brand of our new business. So that's a real cause for concern. How am I meant to send this out to the public when my own family and friends don't know how to pronounce it? So, consider that. Another thing I just want to talk to you about when choosing your brand name carefully. I have a client who chose a brand name which is extremely similar to just a generic product, because that's their industry. I'm going to make this up because this isn't the name of the company, but it was something like Fire Safety Products Limited. Okay, Fire Safety Products. Limited, and that was their brand and trading name, Fire Safety Products. Now, the fact of the matter is, you go ahead and type into Google Fire Safety Products, you're not going to come across their company. You're going to come across every other supplier of fire safety products who are doing SEO, PPC, marketing for that terminology. So frankly, your brand is already competing with products and with products that other people sell. So you're never going to gain your visibility. The other thing to consider, just whilst we're on that, is try not to have generic products or phrases, because one day you might think to consider trademarking your company name. And with the trademark regulations, you're not actually able to trademark a terminology which is generic. I think the one that they use on their example on their website is the term Quality Handbags Limited. You can't trademark the term Quality Handbags Limited because somebody selling handbags on an e-commerce store might want to use the expression, we sell quality handbags. So subsequently, they won't allow that trademark. All right, moving on, because I'm behind time here. Do create a website, okay? I said to you earlier on, progress, not perfection. You don't have to have the best all-singing website to launch, because otherwise you could be sitting there forever. I had one client who actually waited and said, no, I'm not too sure, I'm not too sure, I'm not too sure. Now, they started at exactly the same time as me. 2 years later, I had progressed and my turnover had tripled or something along those lines, and she still hadn't launched her product. She was still dealing with the content, dealing with the product. Bear in mind, it was a service, not a tangible product. And it took her 2 years before she actually launched her website. And then she failed within the first year because she'd actually run out of all her money from living off her savings for 2 years. So consider progress, not perfection. Also, don't rely on Facebook or other types of social media as your visual input to the world. Okay, do consider creating yourself a website, even if it's a basic one to begin with. If you rely on things like Facebook, you've seen what's happened recently with the whole Facebook crash, as it were. So, that means that your website will also go down. That's not to say your servers won't go down on your website, but what I'm saying to you is you're reliant on some third party. The other thing about that as well is Facebook, in my opinion, may very well, this is like a freemium model. They're offering everything to you for free at the moment, but things are starting to creep in. The Facebook algorithm is now starting to lean towards paid services as opposed to organic. And in my gut instinct, I'm wondering as to whether or not, as a question mark, I'm wondering as to whether or not Facebook are actually going to start charging business owners to have a business profile in the future. So just do consider that. Let's move on. Identify what your core market service will be. What I mean by that is don't become a jack of all trades, okay? Because your customers will see through it when they start questioning you about certain things. The chance that unless you're an expert in all of those fields, don't become a jack of all trades. Specialize in the sector that you're good in, or rather the skill sector that you're good in, and become an expert in that given area. Okay, let's have a look at your company ethos and core values. Not really a biggie, but some people will ask you about your core values, and it's a good selling point when you put it on your website. Some people will ask about it, and just also it's about your integrity as well. How much are you going to stand by your company values when dealing with a client? Next one, thought about niching. Okay, so yes, and this goes down to my top tip down here at the bottom. Do niche in a sector that you're passionate about. If you niche, I talked to you about earlier on about the agency that I worked in for ages. They niched within the automotive sector, and they were the UK's largest automotive digital agency by a country mile. And they niched in that sector, and eventually they didn't initially started off just taking on anything that they could, but then as they grew, they niched into a sector. They got rid of all the other erroneous kind of clients, and they became the leading authority in that sector because they niched. So do consider about niching in a particular sector and make sure you're passionate about it, because otherwise you're going to lose a lot of momentum, a lot of energy, and a lot of enthusiasm about it. Consider your USP. What's going to make you, USP, unique selling point. So what is your USP? What's going to make you stand out from your competitors? Is it your price? Is it your quality? Is it your speed? Is it your flexibility? Is it your reliability? Is it your niche? So on and so forth. Just consider those things. How much are you going to charge? Now, initially, you're going to have to potentially charge less than the competition because you're starting out and you need to gain some traction. You need to consider how competitive you are. Then let's have a look at your competitors as well. If you are going to go ahead and niche in a particular sector, are you going up against major players who will just kill you instantly? Like I said about automotive, would it be wise for you to go into the automotive sector and challenge some of the other major giants who are already in that sector and who have easily the lion's share of the market? So look at national competitors in your niche, and also locally as well. So are there any other major agencies in your local area which might drown out your voice when you start doing some local marketing? And lastly, to help you start up, and you always need to find some money. You've got the old I can't remember however it is, 4 or 5 F's. It's what is it? It's fools, friends, families, and fuckwits. Excuse my language, but that is what it is. So yes, you can borrow money in those ways, or go ahead and have a look at some government grants for startups. Okay, there are a lot of grants, and if you click on this link, and I'm sure we can be shared later on. The government website, you can go on there, you can search by your region, and then it will show you, I believe, all the active government grants in your region, whether it be Southeast or London and so on and so forth. Startup loans is slightly different, obviously, from a grant. You have to go ahead and pay it back, and with an interest. But obviously, startup business loans often have a lower interest rate. What I will say, however, is be wary of offering personal guarantees. Then that negates the whole purpose of having a limited liability company. Okay, we are a little bit behind on time. There's only a couple more slides here, and then we'll go ahead through the Q&A. What I will say about this moves on to the next thing. So once you're up and running, we got to have a look at your sales. Now, I don't know about you, I was never a natural salesman. In fact, I took on a sales job and I lasted 3 months, okay, and I was fired from it because I was rubbish at sales. However, that was something I was not passionate about, okay? Selling a product I wasn't passionate about. If it's your own company, it's your own baby, you're actually going to be very passionate about it. You're going to be very protective about it, and you're going to want to do your absolute best to make this work. So let's have a look at sales. Sales are going to fall to yourself to begin with. Until such time as you grow and you can afford to get hold of a really nice qualified salesman and give them commission and so on and so forth, it's going to fall on your own shoulders. So first thing I'd say, definitely create some form of PDF sales brochure. You can go ahead and create it like I'm doing with this presentation now. This is a very, very bland presentation. Hopefully I've gone over the substance as opposed to style, but go ahead and create yourself a sales brochure, outline all your prices and your costs, because if you don't want to show that to other competitors on your website, which is completely understandable, then keep that. So when you're speaking to a client, you can message them privately and send them your PDF sales brochure with all the facts and figures on it. The next thing, create a sales proposal template. Do not reinvent the wheel every single time. Okay, I used to do that. I used to create a bespoke proposal for every single client that I met, and I did it all from scratch. Can you imagine how time consuming and time wasteful that was? In the end, I started to realize, wait a minute, actually, I know what I'm selling and I know what they want to go ahead and see. So let's go ahead and start creating a template. Then I can just take out the client's name and put in the actual services, and away you go. Next thing, research and practice a routine sales pitch, okay, to help you win that contract. Now, whenever I'm speaking with a client, I like to kind of deliver them down a small journey to actually kind of ask them a whole lot of questions, identify what their problems are, and then hopefully look to proceed how we can solve that. There are lots of other kind of sales techniques. You might have heard of something called AIDA, A-I-D-A. That stands for attention, interest, desire, action. So grab their attention, tweak their interest, then kind of nurture their desire, and then finally hit them with the action with, okay, let's do the deal now. That's probably more, actually, I learned that donkeys years ago, and that's probably more for like retail selling. However, if you were to look at it from an agency point of view, and this is one that I learned, which was called SPIN, and SPIN stands for situation, problem, impact, and need. Okay, so when you're speaking to a client, you talk about their situation. What is their current situation? How's it? And let's learn about your situation that you're currently in. What have you done so far? Now let's look at the problem. Okay, so identify the hurdles that they're currently facing, given their situation. Is it that they're not getting enough exposure? Is it that their PPC performance is underperforming? Is it their social isn't getting enough reach? Then let's talk about the impact. And you talk about the negative impact. What kind of negative impact is that having on their business? Okay, so by now you've kind of sold them the perspective. It's almost like fear mongering that they've kind of dawned and realized that they're actually in a bit of trouble. And then you talk about the need or the solution. You're going to provide them with what they need to overcome those problems. So spin. Okay, practice your elevator pitch as well. So many people I speak to and I ask them, can you just tell me what you do? Actually, what is your company? And they babble on for absolutely ages, just like I'm doing now. But they babble on for absolutely ages. Now, an elevator pitch is an American thing. It's talking about when they talk, obviously, an elevator as opposed to a lift. In America, you need to be able to succinctly tell the person standing next to you in the elevator what you do for a living or what your company does within the time it takes to go from one floor to the next floor. That's why it's called the elevator pitch. Just think about 2 sentences, a very succinct expression about what your business is and how you help people and why they should consider you. Okay. Sales process, consider using a CRM system like a customer relationship management system. As you start to grow and as you start to have notes, you're going to have a build up of emails. I think I've got over 1,100 when I looked at yesterday, unread actionable emails in my inbox. And that's before I even look at the CRM. Okay. So when you're doing the sales, consider having a proper CRM system. HubSpot, the link that I've given you here, is absolutely free. It's a brilliant system. I think it even has a sales pipeline as well, where you can progress the person along. Have a look at their videos. It's really good. It's free to use indefinitely. I think go ahead and do it. Next thing, when you're dealing with your clients, constantly communicate with your clients. There's nothing worse than winning a pitch, winning the client, signing the proposal, going about your business, and you don't speak to them. They hate that, and they'll pull out at their earliest opportunity. Okay, so consider regular communication, even if it's just dipping the toe in the water every now and then, speaking with your clients. The next thing I want to say is retaining a client is cheaper than acquisition. And what I mean by that is if you've already got a client on your books, consider upselling to them. Make sure they go ahead and sign on for another month if it's a retainer model, but nurture that existing client because they've already bought into your services. Okay, so consider about that rather than keep trying to fetch the next client. I had one of my clients I spoke with and I said to him, what's your retention rate like or your acquisition rate? And he said, every month our business probably comprises of about 80% of revenue comes from new business every month. And I said, new business every month is 80%. So what do you do with your old business? And he goes, honestly, they just fall by the wayside. And I said, is it cyclical? Do you need them every month? Can they buy it? It's not like becoming a learning instructor where once they pass the test, they're not going to come back. And he said, no, they need their like CPDs or something like that every year. But he never considered the retention procedure. So do have a think about that. Now, my top tip here at the bottom is take on all jobs initially. Yes, you're going to need to grab as much money as you can do in the early days. Then later on, you can be selective about it. Not all clients are equal. Not all clients are actually going to be as profitable as some. Some will drain your time. Some will drain your profitability and your admin. So do consider that when you progress into bigger and brighter things. Okay, I think we're on to 2 last slides. When you look at your admin, okay, so what you want to try and do is streamline a lot of your admin. Definitely, like I said to you at the very start, outsource the basic stuff, which takes up your time. You are a digital marketer, okay? You have a skill sector, whether it be PPC, SEO, social media, email marketing, conversion rate optimization, or any of those kind of things, web development, whatever it might be. That's your specialty. That's where your strength lies in. It's not in accounting. It's not in data entry. It might not even be in proposal write-ups or email send-outs or sales literature creation and stuff like that. Farm it out, okay? Do some research, have a look on things like Upwork. I don't actually know what the new name of it is. It might be, I think it's Upwork or Freelancer. Go ahead and find a virtual assistant, a VA as they're now called. Definitely have a look at accounts. Farm out a lot of the stuff as cheaply as you can, but make sure it comes back well. Create a template of activities you can cookie cutter for each client. So I went ahead after a while. To begin with, I actually tailored a service for every single client, every single time, which meant a lot of time, a lot of research, and so on and so forth. After a while, I started to realize that 80% of the services were universal and actually only 20% had to be tailored. So what I did was I actually started to template a load of the activity. So I didn't have to think about what I'm going to be delivering for each client. Okay, and that then moves on to the next thing here, an SOP, standard operating procedure. So consider creating a standard operating procedure for your own sake of mind, so you don't have to think about things when you're doing stuff, but also for any kind of future employees or temporary employees, or even your admin that you're going to farm out. Create a standard operating procedure and how you're going to go ahead and operate things. Yeah, put it into an Excel template. These things do not have to be la-di-da fancy. Okay, it's very, very basic stuff. The other thing as well is think about your KPI reporting for your end products. Okay, this is for the clients. Do have a look at your KPI reporting, because if they're going to be paying you money for something, they want to know what success looks like, and you're going to have to manage their expectations, and you're also going to have to report on that at the end of the day. So things like a website is tangible. They can actually see it, they can operate it, they can interact with it. They're only going to be happy with it, or they're going to ask you to tweak it, but that is something tangible, and that's your end product really. If it's SEO or PPC, then obviously KPI reports are probably going to deal with results, how many leads, or where your organic positions are, and all the amount of traffic, and so on and so forth. If it's social, it might be something about how much engagement or reach that you've acquired. Whatever it is, consider your KPI reporting. Have a look at some of the KPI reporting tools which are out there. I think we use a company called Megalithic, but there's so many out there, okay, which will help integrate with things with Facebook, Google Analytics, and so on and so forth, so you can provide like a template KPI report every month for your clients. So this is going to move on to the next part of the next slide. What I will say, top tip, is you're going to get bogged down with working for a lot of clients. Okay, there's no doubt about it as things progress, but dedicate a percentage of your working week to your own business. Okay, otherwise you won't grow, or you won't be able to find the time to go ahead and create these templates for standard operating procedures. And unfortunately, those are the things which will help scale your business in the future. Okay, this is the, dare I say it, is this the last slide? Yes, it is. My goodness me. Okay, so quickly then, your own marketing. Have a budget, stick with it, even if it's a small budget to begin with. Don't go over the top. Then also, I should actually jump this down to the third point here. Think about which activities of your own marketing is going to yield the best ROI. I say to clients that SEO, especially for a brand new company, you're looking at 6 months to a year to really gain some proper traction, trust, build up the momentum with Google, and so on and so forth. If you need immediate leads, then maybe consider some sort of PPC option, whether it be Google PPC, whether it be Facebook PPC, LinkedIn even PPC, although it's very expensive. Things of that nature. Okay, so consider what activities will yield the best ROI and maybe in the quickest time for you as well. This then also ties in with drawing up your own marketing plan. So think about the different avenues that you can do. Think about your objectives. Okay, think about your marketing message. Is it seasonal as well? Okay, I work with a lot of accountants. That's the niche sector that I'm in. Okay, don't think about getting into it. That's my sector. Get out of it. I'm only joking. So, for example, in coming up to around this time of year, November, December, and especially January, it's going to be a massive time for what's known as self-assessment tax returns, SATRs. So I know that we've got to do a heavy push for that type of campaign, because it's very, very seasonal at this time of year. So consider the seasonalities of your industries and how to plan around that. Maybe push more of your budget towards your peak season and save some money during those seasons, which might be the summer months when people are away on holiday, things of this nature. Also, do consider to practice what you preach. Now, I unfortunately do not practice what I preach, because I am currently stuck dealing with, or not stuck, that's the wrong word to use. I have lovely clients, and I'm working very, very hard for them. And I have my other teams dealing with stuff like our own marketing. But unfortunately, we don't always practice what we preach, because we get tied down. And so this is why these are words to myself as well. Do go ahead and remember to put some time into your own business each week. That is very, very, very vital and important. And I'll be absolutely honest with you. I go on entrepreneurial meetings all the time. I actually went on one last month, and that was the key message that they gave to me, was that you need to put more of your own time, Chris, into your own company, because you're working too hard on all your clients. Okay, so it's not even for me. Okay, I've been in the industry 14 years. I'm still learning. I'm still constantly learning, and you have to. It's as simple as that. Lastly, consider some networking groups. There are things like, obviously, you can consider your local chamber of commerce. maybe speak to some local networking groups, although nowadays everything's done virtually. So these are kind of free things which you can do, and really it's just going to take up your time, whether it be in the morning or the evening. And the last top tip here before I open up the floor for Q&As is very much about becoming the authority. I mentioned there about niching in your sector. You want to become the authority in your subject matter for your chosen industry. That's the ultimate goal. And then what happens is you have a friend of yours from university who picks up the phone and calls you and goes, "Hello, Chris, I hear that you run an award-winning digital marketing agency. Can you please come and speak at our university for a seminar, because I think you're the best person in the world." And that's what happens. That's how you become that authority. I see you. And that's how you become, dare I say it, the authority in that sector. All right, well, look, that's it. That's enough of me rambling. This is one last little thing here. Please be gentle with me, okay? When you ask these questions, that's all I ask. I will do my absolute best. We got about 20 minutes, 15 minutes. I'm going to open up the floor, or Matt will open up the floor, and I will do my best to answer them. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that, Chris. Very insightful. Like the tips at the bottom, and especially like the idea of farming out what I'm not good at. Always been a fan of that. We've had a lot of questions asked throughout the entirety of the chat, which I quite like. So I'm going to pick on a couple of the major themes. And one of the major themes, which is kind of the third to last question there, actually, is how do you initially find your clients?
Oh, that is a very good question. Okay, so it's exactly the same as what I probably say to my own clients, okay? There are two ways you can do things. You can either outreach to them, and that's the equivalent of cold calling in the old-fashioned days, but unfortunately that's got a low hit rate. Okay, you can buy an email database from a GDPR compliant database warehouse, get yourself an email system and start bombarding people with emails, but the pickup rate is very, very low, and frankly that's all cold calling. What I prefer is looking at warm inquiries, people chasing you. Okay, so if people chase you and they pick up the phone and they call you and then go, "Hi, Joe Blogs, I'd like to learn more about your agency. I've had a look at your website." That's the preferred option, because it means it's a warm lead, it's easier to convert into a sale, and frankly, you're not chasing them. Dare I say it, you're a little bit more in the seat of control there. So what I would probably look to do is, the easiest way is search engine marketing, whether it be Google, PPC, or SEO, because I say this to every single client. If you're going to search for a service, a product, a holiday, 99% of the time, you're going to go jump on Google and search for that product first, okay? Social searches are becoming more prevalent, yes, but let's be honest with you, Google has the industry share. So people will go onto Google and they will search for a digital marketing agency near them. And if you can rank in your positions, like locally, consider local SEO, consider doing some very, very cheap local PPC, people see your advert, come to you, hopefully convert on your website, and then you have a warm lead coming to you rather than you chasing them, irritating and annoying them. Cool.
Excellent. So there's the second follow-up question, which once again has just come through again, but has been through the chat. So now you've got them, how are you keeping them? Okay,
so first and foremost, onboarding process. Consider, when I talk about a standard operating procedure, think about an onboarding process, about how you're going to nurture that client once they're on. You don't just sign a contract and thanks, bye-bye. You're going to want to nurture them. I think, and do forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, but I think British Airways are very, very good in doing what they call a value chain analysis. And that is where they look at every single touch point that a customer has with their business, and they try to improve on those touch points and be better than the competitors. So if you can imagine the first class service, the experience that they have at the check-in desk, the experience they have in the first class waiting lounge, then the experience that they have on the plane journey itself, and also afterwards with communications afterwards, before and after. Think about the value chain. So exactly the same principle here. Think about the value chain and how you're going to nurture that client coming on board. And I also talked to you as well about great communication once they're on board. There is nothing worse than not having regular communication with your clients, because trust me, they get pissed off with you when they haven't heard from you. That you're taking their money and I haven't bloody heard from you. What the hell's going on? I can't see any reports. I can't see any action, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Excellent. Another kind of theme that's come through, so it's changing slightly then. It's kind of, and I like the way this person phrased it, was knowing what you know now what would you have done differently?
Oh, that is a very good. Okay, yeah, I will definitely say that. I've talked about things like creating the templates for the sales brochures, the sales proposals, creating your own standard operating procedure, and almost kind of like bullet pointing out a whole list of actions that you know you're going to do on a monthly basis for a client's social campaign or for a client's SEO campaign. Okay, so I was spending a lot of time tailoring a program for each client, even the really kind of like small, cheap clients. I was spending a lot of time reinventing the wheel every single time. And that sapped a lot of energy and a lot of time. And you can reinvest that time into other areas of your market. Also, one other thing that Matthew said right at the very, very start when he said this, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, and someone once said this to me as well, something very, very similar. Okay. This is the key phrase. I really want you to take this away. You do not make money off your own back. The only way you will become rich is by other people's backs. And I was charging for their time. I have someone and a family member of mine who talk about the fact that they want to earn themselves a six-figure salary and so on and so forth. Yeah, okay, everyone has that wish and their goal. That's absolutely fine. But they work for someone, and they will always work for someone. And I say to them, let me ask you this, how many billable hours in the week can you earn from? Average, okay, 40 billable hours. All right, well, I've got a team of 10. So that means I have 400 billable hours per week. Okay, and the reason why is because I'm leveraging on 9 other employees here. So I don't have 9 other employees, but you get the gist. What I'm getting at is you leverage other people's efforts works. Obviously, you reward them naturally, but that's how you grow and you scale. And that's one thing that I would say is try to farm out a lot of the stuff which is going to drain your time and you make you very bored, make you very disinterested in your own company. Farm all of that out. That's one thing I really, really wish I could go back and redo.
Excellent. Yeah, and there was another great question that came up, was on about, and it's more less marketing, more the entrepreneurial, and they phrased it, are there any healthy habits to develop your entrepreneurial spirit, skill set?
Yeah, so as you can see, I have a lifetime supply to Red Bull, much to my wife's dismay, because she thinks I'm going to have a heart attack any second. So yes, the healthy life-work balance really is very, very important. Okay, as Matthew knows, I'm actually quite a bit of a large lad, and frankly, that's because I sit in this chair all day, just working away. When I need to get up, I need to walk around. I might need to do standing up and working at the desk, as you know, you have these kind of new desks. Do consider putting your health first. There's absolutely no point in you earning this money if you're dead. Okay, so do think about your work health, work-life balance, especially the impact it's going to have on your relationships. I used to work on Saturdays and then some days on Sundays, much to my wife's dismay. And now I've got young children. That's completely a deal breaker. So really, really, really do consider hammering it hard for those 40 or 50 hours during the week, but also definitely remember to have some downtime. Pamper yourself, whether it be, I don't know. For me, I know it sounds silly, but I'm actually going to have to have a beautiful shave, a complete clean, wet shave this week. And that is my pampering for this month, okay, to kind of help myself relax. So yeah, that's what I would suggest.
Excellent. Another one, which is actually a question I've always had as well, so I'm glad someone else asked it. How do you set your prices?
Oh,
do you simply look at what your customers do, your competitors do, and just go that?
Yeah, we haven't got enough time to go into that today. I actually went, you remember I said to you, I myself go on a lot of entrepreneurial seminars myself, because it's always a learning curve. And one of the things I went on was I actually found it on Facebook. It was a Facebook video kind of tutorial system somebody was selling, and I thought, this has piqued my interest. I'll have a look. And it was all about setting your prices, how you distinguish setting your prices, and so on and so forth. Now, please do forgive me. Right now, I could not recall how I got about it, but I remember sitting there for about 2 hours doing this program, and a few light bulb moments went off. And I thought, you know what? You don't have to take everything on board. Just like I'm saying to you now here, you don't have to take everything I'm saying to you as gospel truth. You have to take the things which are going to resonate and work for you, okay, and adapt them to your model and your way of thinking and your method of work. So what I'd probably do is suggest having a look at other kind of entrepreneurial discussions and groups and forums. There's tons and tons and tons of free forums on Facebook about business groups, support groups, and also on LinkedIn. Have a chat with other people there, and forgive me, we probably don't have enough time to go into it today. But yes, competitor is definitely one thing. Your time and your value is another thing. And also look at your the profit and loss. Okay, so if you charge something for £100 and you're farming out to a virtual assistant and at say £30, and then you also need to spend say £20 for marketing acquisition of that client in the first place, £10 for actual kind of admin overheads, software costs of running the business. So your costs are already £50. Okay, I'm making it up, but do you see what I'm saying? So straight away you then have to realize that you've got to also add your salary on top of that, and there are some sort of retained profit for the company that you can reinvest for growth. But that's kind of a good way to work backwards and see how your pricing model should be. And then you have to justify that pricing model. If you're more expensive than a competitor, justify it, okay? Because you will be asked. Price is one of the main considerations that people will take up when dealing with an agency. Cool.
Excellent. Yeah. We've had a few questions about web design and kind of, are there any good, what's a good platform?
Yeah, easy,
for a website?
easy. WordPress. Okay, don't bother with Wix, don't bother with Squarespace. Forgive me, I shouldn't really be saying these things one-on-one. Any of the kind of free stuff that you kind of get, or the freemium models, all that kind of rubbish. Go to WordPress, and dare I say it, if you're looking for a website, come to me, because we have a lovely business starter package for new customers, and I'm being serious. Actually, we'll help you out and we'll help you deliver something and spread the cost cheaply. But I'm being very serious. Find yourself a WordPress developer. The reason for that is many folds. Okay, I used to work for a big agency that had proprietary based software. The problem with proprietary based software is that you're stuck to them. You can't move away. You then, if they want to increase their prices, you're screwed. Okay, so point number one. Point number two as well is, if big changes happen, like with Google happened just recently, the Core Web Vitals updates, so many other big companies who have proprietary based software can't actually adapt their website to meet the new requirements. And it's like moving an oil tanker. Okay, so by the time that they've actually got round to fixing their software for your benefit, all your competitors have moved on. Long story short, just trust me, I could write a couple of 1,000-word blog article on this thing. Go with WordPress. Simple as that. Ooh.
Excellent. We had a good question as well, actually, because, and maybe I'm asking the wrong person. They were on about, is there still a market for, like, do you have to be a digital marketer, or is there still a need for more traditional marketing, posters, events? I mean, we both know the events industry very well.
Yeah.
You know, so is digital marketing one of the way forwards? Is there still a market for the traditional marketers?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to give you a statistic which I remember very well when I was dealing with the automotive sector, trying to sell cars, for example, as in my clients were automotive dealers. So selling cars, or how to promote the sales of cars on their behalf. The average Joe Bloggs customer in the street will have about increase from 18, I think, to 24, if you could believe it, touch points before making a decision on when to purchase a car. Now, when I say a touch point, they would be things which are both online and offline. So they might see an advert in the newspaper. They might hear a radio ad. They might see a bus stop sign. But then also, then they're going to go online and have a look at the company online. They're going to have a look at the images on Auto Trader, for example, or the digital thing. Then they're going to go ahead and look at reviews of the dealership online, because they can't do that in a paper. So and so on and so forth. They might have a look at their social and blah 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 blah. So and YouTube videos for reviews of that particular car and the product. So there's actually a good argument that they do work both hand in hand. It's not one or the other. I think, if I'm brutally honest with you, the only thing in my personal belief, which is probably dying out, are things like print magazines and advertising within print magazines. When was the last time, brutally honest with you, when was the last time, apart from being in London and you sitting on picking up the Metro magazine on the tube, when was the last time you bought yourself an actual hard print magazine or a newspaper and read it cover to cover and took an interest? Yeah, do you see what I mean? Most things are digital, on your phone, on your laptop, etc., tablet, and so on and so forth.
Excellent, yeah. And a question that's come in just from Ilya, but has been repeated earlier as well. Just he says, how do you know if entrepreneurial is for you? And a few people have asked this. How do they know if they are an entrepreneur? As we said, I identified it from you back 20 years ago in university and stuff like that, and you've already known it from before then as well. How do you know entrepreneur if you are an entrepreneur?
Just
it's a nice easy one to end it on for you there, mate.
I know we're short on time, but Matt, I got to share this with you. Okay, my dissertation at university, because we're on the same course together, my dissertation was actually, and they said to me, you have to tailor it to our subject matter. So I said, all right, what is the entrepreneurial spirit in events management leaders? Are they born with it or are they nurtured? So that was actually my dissertation title, which was about whether an entrepreneurial spirit is nature versus nurture. And what I'd probably say about that is, if you genuinely get up in the morning and you like business, you like the idea of turning a profit, or even if you work for a charity, you like the idea of progression of some sort of thing. It's the idea of almost challenging oneself. So I love to challenge myself. I love chomping on a new project and so on and so forth. So you have that ego. Now, you don't always get those opportunities if you work for somebody else. You're not necessarily given the big projects. Rather, I don't believe that, unfortunately, although working for someone else is actually meant to be a symbiotic approach, I genuinely don't believe that actually is true. Unfortunately, I think that the employers will dictate to the employees what to do. And that unfortunately means that you are kind of boxed and pigeonholed in terms of what you're doing, what your creativity and flair is, and so on and so forth. So if you wake up in the morning and you kind of have this urge to do something, but you're reined in and you can't do it because your employers don't want to, that's the kind of entrepreneurial spirit, I would say, that kind of exists within you.
Excellent, thank you for that, and very nice passionate ending there as well, I think. So you said we can share your slides, that's perfect. Are people okay to hit you up on LinkedIn as well, create that network?
Absolutely, I'm absolutely more than happy. I'll tell you what I will do. One other thing, Matt, I know oh God, should I dare do this? Do you want to send out my actually no, just hook me up on LinkedIn in all seriousness and message me through LinkedIn. I was about to say to give out my email address, but I just said to you I've got 1,100 unread emails. Okay, so the chances are it won't be read. Hook me up on LinkedIn. You'll see my ugly mug and my company on LinkedIn. Message me, contact me, ask me any questions at all. I'll be happy to help out. If you want to have some tips, if you want to know what software is best to use, if you want to know where can I find a good VA, where can I find good freelancers, okay, just give me a chat. I'll be more than happy to, dare I say, give you all the notes that I've gathered over the last 14 years.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time today, Chris. I think we've got to finish there because we're bang on the time. And we've got other courses. And as I said, so we will share the slides out with people. We will, and Chris is happy for you to find and hook up with you on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for everyone that asked questions. I hope I got the main themes through to the questions. We had over 60 questions, so I just tried to go the themes. But
if you want to ask any more questions, honestly, just send them across to me on LinkedIn, and I'll answer each one of you individually. I'll happily do that for you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time then, Chris. And I think everyone's about to go.
Great stuff.